We here. The short countdown is over with, man. It's episode 1 of the Expert Human Podcast. I couldn't be more excited to invite y'all into hopefully a world that would be healthy and that would be encouraging and empowering to you. Man, listen, subscribe, like, share, let all your peoples know. Let your peoples know to let their peoples know. And listen, stay tuned, man. We got a lot of good stuff planned. A lot of good episodes already in the can for y'all. And so, yeah, let's get the show started. Come on in. Hello, world. This is Joshua. This is episode 1 of the Expert Human Podcast. Man, I'm so excited to finally get this thing kicking off. I appreciate you for tuning in, for taking some time out of your day or your night to be able to sit, talk, think, chill with me for a little bit as we get this show on the road. Listen, if you don't know, we're going to show that the purpose of this pod is to enlighten, educate, and empower every human being to be the expert version of themselves. And so hopefully over time, we'll be able to prove that out, to be able to prove out just the value that I hope to be able to bring with this space, to people from all walks of life, to every person interested in learning how to refine and show up in the world as the best version of themselves. And so that's what this whole pod is about. And I'm real excited to be able to think through and work through accomplishing that mission for the world and for the people of the world. And so welcome to episode 1. Listen, this one is going to be light because this is kind of an introductory episode. Man, I'm nervously excited, more excited than nervous, but, first time this kind of long form talking in front of a camera. And so I just really want to give y'all a little bit of background on me and maybe project a little bit about the direction of the show and the why behind it. And so, like I said, if you don't know me, my name is Joshua, last name Matthews. And yeah, man, I'll be I'm pushing 40. I'll be 40 this year in July. Obviously, I'm a man, married to a wonderful wife. Her name is Stephanie. I have 3 beautiful children, which you all, I'm sure, will be hearing more about and maybe even seeing in very measured dosages at some point. I am a believer, meaning that I, have a faith system that is beholden to the scriptures and the teachings of the Bible. I try to live my life from a place that is representative of what Christianity means as much as I understand it, and what it should, project to the world in the different contexts that I exist in. And so, yeah, man, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I am, just someone who really leans in, or as of the last few years of my life, have really leaned into just the journey of life and the journey of, being a human, someone who, is evolving, devolving, learning, unlearning, growing, achieving, failing, all of the things. And so, I like to think of myself as a pretty dynamic person, just as I believe all human beings are in their own rights. And so, yeah, man, that's kind of me, as in the flyover. I want to talk a little bit about just kind of the name of the show, because I think, it without understanding the heart and the spirit behind the name, it can almost come off as arrogant, like, oh, expert human. What that mean? You got it all together, and it's actually the exact opposite. The name has gone through several phases of evolution, and the thought process behind it really is, in my months of preparation, and really, man, probably close to a year, honestly, of just thinking through this show and what I wanted to represent, and what I feel would be true and most authentic to me. I'm big into just learning and putting my head in spaces where information is being given. And what I seen, or at least from what I gathered, was, man, there are a lot of people just out here talking, and I'm not mad at that. And for a lot of the people who I listen to, they speak with a certain level of mastery about whatever it is they're talking about, a certain command of expertise and confidence in, being proficient and effective at whatever it is they're talking about and communicating. And I'll be honest with y'all, I and with that as the backdrop, I kind of surveyed, okay, well, I know I feel, led to kind of create a space where I'm talking about something, but I don't quite feel the level of expertise or mastery to press record on the camera and then just start, expounding on one particular subject day in and day out, just because I have such a level of mastery over it. And that was kind of discouraging for me for a bit, because I'm like, man, I don't feel like an expert at anything. I don't feel like I've reached the mountaintop of understanding, and full on ownership of, like, yeah, I do this about anything. There was a stint in my life where I think, probably as like a parent and a father, I thought, like, man, I'm killing it, or at least that I knew all of what to do in a given moment. And then there hit a season of my life as a parent where I was like, man, I'm having to work through some issues in myself and with my kids that I don't have the answers for. Like, I don't know what to do. And so that was humbling. My faith journey, which we'll talk about next. I don't think I ever thought to myself like I had mastered it, but there was a point in my life where I felt like, I had a firm grip on the things that I believed and why, and it was going to be, difficult to kind of talk me off of the ledge of certain belief systems within my Christian faith. And then, I really kind of had a crisis of faith as some of the things that I believed really staunchly were challenged, and warranted a more thoughtful examination. And so even then, as it relates to my faith, I'm like, man, okay, well, that's not anything that I can say confidently that I feel I've mastered. And then as a husband, I know I'm a great husband for all intents and purposes, but that doesn't mean that I hit the mark on the head every single time. It doesn't mean that throughout different pockets and seasons of my now going on 13-year marriage, that I've felt like I've had it all figured out, and that I've downloaded kind of like the playbook, and for every situation I know how I'm supposed to respond. I know what I'm supposed to say. I know what I'm supposed to think. And so even there, as a husband, it's like, man, there seems to be a pattern in my life of constantly growing, constantly learning, constantly developing. And that's what I'm an expert at. I am an expert at journeying. I am an expert at experiencing change throughout my life. I'm an expert at seeing gaps in my life that I don't have answers for, seeing blind spots that are just as of a breaking news event to me as it is to the people in my life. And so instead of running from that, and instead of placing further burden on myself because I may not have these areas of my life completely figured out and fine tuned and mastered, I was like, man, let me lean into that. Let me lean into my lack of proficiency in certain areas. And as I've grown older, and particularly over these last few years, come to the realization that every single person is in that boat. We're all in that vein together. We're all humans trying to master what it means to be the best human, the best father, the best wife, the best sister, brother, employee, um, uh, uh, son, daughter, that we can possibly be. And, you know, kudos to the person that really just shows up to life day in and day out, with the headspace to say, hey, I'm looking to master myself today. I'm looking to grab a hold of what the most expert, proficient, and effective version of me looks like. And so to be an expert human in some regards is almost like an oxymoron, because to be human means to kind of be in this cyclical space of growing, developing, maybe even regressing and devolving in some areas. But there's always like this sense of progression, whether it's you progressing or the world progressing and you by default moving backwards. And to embrace that, and then to be, an expert at being a human. It's like, hey, I just embrace what humanity means for my existence. It means to be growing. It means to be introspective about where I need to be better, or maybe thoughts and habits that I need to let go of, and new disciplines that I need to adopt. And so, hence the name, Expert Human. Because if there is one thing that I will lean into to have some level of mastery over, it is to master myself. It is to show up every day in the world with the intent of being the best version of myself. And that's going to be on a sliding scale of what best looks like for me or you for that day and for that function, right? Whether it's husband, mother, father, employee, fill in the blank. I just want to show up as the best human. I want to show up in the world as the best human that I can be, the expert version of myself that I can be. And so the spirit of the podcast is in the name, where, man, this is hopefully, thoughtfully, will be a space where myself as a human, you who are listening, watching as a human, will come and get empowerment, enlightenment, education, insights that will be a contributing factor to all of us growing as humans together, and to all of us growing into the best versions of ourselves, so that we can show up in the world and contribute to the world and to humanity in the most productive, healthy, and helpful ways. And so That is the reason behind the name. This is the Expert Human Podcast. All right. And so, with that said, man, we're going to be talking about a bunch of things. All things pertaining to humanity. We're going to be talking about relationships. We're going to be talking about partnerships, marriage, relationships from different vantage points, right? Whether you're a husband, you're a single man dating, you're a woman single who's dating a wife. We're going to be talking about parenting kids and all of the excitement and adventure that brings. Finances, health, the economy, politics, culture, art, all the things, history, literature, all of it, because all of these things make up the human experience. And of course, we'll be talking about faith. And we'll be talking about faith, hopefully from a place that isn't discouraging or gives an air of exclusivity, but talking about faith from a place that hopefully will invite you in and make you feel welcome, and maybe disarm any reservations that you may have, and be helpful, be helpful for your growth. So I am an expert at nothing but being a human man. And that is good enough for me. That's good enough for me. All right. So with that said, this is going to be a show, meaning that it's not just going to be me sitting here talking to you. It's not just going to be a monologue where, I'm just downloading, out of my pool of thoughts. Man, we're going to have already got some dope guests lined up. People who are expert humans in their own rights, in their own spaces and fields, where we're going to be talking about some really cool stuff. I don't want to give it away because I want you to come back. Episode 1, this is just going to be a teaser. This is like a little appetizer episode. But starting next week when we start having guests, man, it's going to be great. And so you definitely going to want to tune in. Make sure you turn on your notifications. You like and subscribe, share. If you like the content and you, see that it's helpful for you in any way, definitely share it, and tag and your boy and all that stuff. Yeah, man, it's gonna be cool. And so I want to talk, about one of the at least initial inspirations for the show, to give a little background on myself. That's good. Mango tea. That's real good. I want to kind of highlight one of the initial just kind of inspirations to even do the pod to begin with. As I mentioned, just in regards to my worldview and my faith, I'm a Christian and the Lord saved me, which is crazy to even think about. I know the Lord saved me back in 2004, but from 2004 to 2009, I was kind of in a incubator, if you will, where even though I was saved, I didn't really have opportunity to like get traction with my faith until like 2009. And I'll explain that 5-year gap on another episode at another time. But in 2009 is when I was like, okay, now my faith has legs. Now my faith is being challenged. Now my faith is growing. Now my faith is being informed by real world scenarios and experiences and temptations and fellowship and things like that. And from, I want to say 2009 to about 2000 and maybe 15 or so, the space that I existed in terms of my Christian faith was one that was familiar to me, at least culturally, and kind of in the Pentecostal, charismatic, maybe even, what could be defined as word of faith type of faith tradition and camp that I belonged to. And I loved it. I was growing as a person. I was growing as a man. I got married in 2012, so that was still very much some of the early stages of my marriage where I was growing and really beginning to um, see the results of like the application of my faith um, uh, professionally, relationally, financially, and stuff like that. And it was around 2015 where, through fellowship with, some brothers who I'm still pretty close with to this day, that I was introduced to um, really just a new faith tradition and a new way of approaching the scriptures and a new way of thinking about God in ways that I was not familiar with, in ways that even challenged the mode and the expressions and the interpretation of the faith that I was accustomed to, and that's pretty much all that I knew. And so, like around 2015 to maybe, I don't know, 2018 or so, I really went through kind of like a crisis in my faith where, I started to, just in terms of like theology, really have my belief systems challenged, my ways of interpreting the Bible challenged, and it caused, um, I think anger maybe even is an appropriate word, where it's like, man, I was a part of this faith tradition that had this mode of of expression, this mode of liturgy, this mode of interpretation of the Bible, this mode of fellowship, with the saints. That I that that the new information that I was being exposed to um, caused a lot of tension. It caused a lot of tension in what was once, at least what I thought at that time was beautiful to me in terms of my faith. And so, up in from 2009 to 2015, I'm ingesting, Creflo Dollar and Bishop T.D. Jakes and Miles Monroe, um, Jesse Duplantis, and teachers that come from a specific type of faith tradition and camp. That to fairly quickly being exposed to teachers like John Piper, Matt Chandler, Paul Washer, Paul Tripp, R.C. Sproul. Um, to some degree, I'll put, I guess, maybe Dr. Tony Evans into that. That was just a more, what I would term, and I don't mean this offensively, like a rigid and contextualized way of approaching the Bible that caused a whole lot of tension and anger in me because, the camp that I was comfortable in and had built a home in with my faith, was one that I felt had ill-equipped me and underserved me as it relates to understanding the Bible, as it relates to contextualizing the Bible, as it relates to exegeting scripture in a way that is faithful and true to historical interpretations. And from about 2015 to 18, I don't know, I had like, like I said, anger and maybe some resentment of feeling like, man, I've invested 5 or 6 years of my life into this camp, into this faith tradition, only to find out y'all not even teaching me all that should be taught or is right to teach. And it made me really kind of turn up my nose a little bit, and then to go and seek what I thought were greener pastures at the time, and to try and plant myself in a camp that I felt was more aligned with what I was seeing and learning and starting to believe, as it relates to a more reformed theology, or a more orthodox, I guess, orthodoxy. And then what I found out through that experience, was that once I got entrenched in that camp and in that world, to my surprise, there were a whole slew of different issues there where it's like, man, y'all got the quote unquote Bible right. Why are all these other blind spots existing when there's supposed to be a level of, proficiency and mastery of the scriptures here, but there's still just an entirely different set of issues that, one, still are contrary to the scriptures in some ways, and then two, are just totally oblivious to, the cultural nuances of how we're doing life with each other and how we're understanding the word of God. And so I felt like after about 2 years of being in that world, in that camp, that I didn't have a landing place in the church. Where it's like, man, the faith camp that I'm used to being a part of, I don't think that you guys are faithfully serving me in the ways that, let me take that back, because that sounds very self-serving when I say faithfully serving me. And I don't mean for it to come off that way. Probably more so like, by my own estimation, like being faithful to the scriptures. I think maybe that's a better way of saying that. And all of the different issues and tensions that can cause, because I started a podcast because I like to talk, and I don't think I have a big mouth, but I do like to talk. And then to go into this kind of reform camp where it's like, man, the issues that I see here aren't even on you guys' radar. And, but there's a level of, there's an air of know-it-allness where it's like, okay, you just can't disregard all of these teachings and all of this world of faith that I come from, as if it doesn't contribute any value to my Christian life and the lives of millions and millions and millions of others. And so I got real frustrated, man, real frustrated. And for about 2 years, man, me and my family, we just packed up. We just left the church, and fellowship in church is, as long as my wife and I have been married, has been a staple in our world. We go to church on Sundays. Our children are in children's ministry. We are not church attendants. To us, what it means to go to church is to be working and serving and pouring out our life in the church through whatever ministry needs a hand or a pair of feet. And so to go from 100 miles an hour to like a crash halt, was like a shock to our system. And, man, we went through probably like a good year and a half, maybe two, of just like floating. We went to a few different churches, but just not really being able to find a footing anywhere. And it was super harmful to our faith. It was super harmful to our joy, to the regular friendships that we had, because all of our friendships were in the church and birthed out of the church. So now we're kind of isolated. We're on an island, which then leads to just this echo chamber of like your own thoughts and feelings and, all of that stuff. And yeah, man, My marriage was took a hit. I believe the morale, like overall, the morale of my family took a hit. There wasn't any joy. And it was for, I guess, legitimate reasons where it's like, yo, I don't know where myself and my family falls between these two camps. And I'm telling you, man, it was during this time that a lot of my brothers, like people who I love then, love now, that we were all struggling. I'm not crying. That's why I got the tea. Man, it was a period of time where, like, it wasn't just like my own isolated experience. Man, it was so many brothers who I was doing life with, and that who I know love the Lord and love the Bible and love God's people. That there was just like this fire hose of information and revelation that was being downloaded on just kind of like this Christian hip hop community that did serve a lot of good, but man, it kneecapped a lot of good brothers. Like people who were of the faith who were no longer of the faith. People who love the church who all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but over time had real beef and issue with the church, and like the church could do no right. Um, and I definitely was on that slippery slope as well. And I'm still talking about the inspiration, like some of the initial inspiration for the podcast. And so, man, thankfully, it's not because of my own doing at all, man. The Lord was really able to preserve me, even though I was kind of going through my own personal deconstruction, if you will. That he did introduce a season of reconstruction where I was able to kind of reconcile these two, the ideologies of these two camps, this charismatic faith camp and this reformed faith camp, and find a landing place in my mind and in my heart that I was at peace with, and that I felt like God gave me peace about. And so, being able to then go back and reconnect with the church fellowship that essentially had raised me in the faith, after a couple of years of being disconnected. I never was not a believer. I never was in a space where I was like intentionally, recklessly, grossly living in a way that was just contrary to all that I had believed and strived for prior to that season. But I was in a space where it's like, I was loose around the edges of my mind, of my lifestyle, of my rhythms. And then for God to keep me and really bring me back to kind of the original fellowship that I had, but with a more informed footing in my own mind and in my own soul, and one that I was able to find kind of a sweet spot where I feel in my own heart, for whatever it's worth or whatever it means, like being able to thread the needle of like, hey, there is, a charismatic orthodoxy, that makes sense, about my Christian faith that I fully embrace. And so what I found, what I found after that season of kind of restoration and joy being pumped back into my life and in my family's life again, was that there was and is what I think is an imbalance to the faithful representation of one camp versus another. And I'm trying to be responsible with my words because there's beauty in both. Where the more maybe reformed orthodox camp is presented to the world. And when I say the world, I mean the Christian world, or those who care to peer into the Christian world, or culture, where that camp has what I think is a more healthy representation of their humanity, their belief systems, their intent, and the way that their faith is fleshed out than the camp that I feel I'm proudly a part of, which is more charismatic leaning, more Pentecostal leaning, where in these spaces, in these podcast streets, in these internet avenues, either there is gross misrepresentation or at best mischaracterization about not only what we believe, but why we believe it, regardless if you agree with it or not, but why we may believe certain things and how our faith is fleshed out in a way that is faithful and true to the Bible, or faithful and true to our interpretation of the Bible. And so, I want to create a space where hopefully people like myself and many, many others who are living their Christian life, kind of threading the needle through the faith camp of like, yo, we are exuberant with our praise and we believe in the continued working of the gifts of the Spirit. And we might yell at the pastor while he's talking if he's talking right. We might yell at him if he's talking wrong. Right? And that there is beauty and truth and faithfulness to this that doesn't need to be characterized as anti-intellectual, overly emotional, and just lacking substance. And so, that is one of the initial inspirations for the pod, where it's like, man, not to say that these spaces don't exist where there's good, healthy representation of the charismatic Pentecostal faith. But like I said, just in my surveying, I think that there's an imbalance. And, I hope to be able to bring more balance to, the representation of the faith camp and the faith tradition that I'm a part of, because I think it's helpful and needed. And I think that what we believe, why we believe, and how we believe it is beautiful, just as much as other faith camps that also are a part of the true Christian faith, but approach the Bible with a different tenor and a different filter, if you will, for interpretation. And so yeah, man, I'm just trying to be charismatic with the seatbelt on. That's it. Because there are all of the people who I know, most of the people at least who I know, who are a part of the church that I most feel comfortable in culturally. Wonderful, beautiful people who bring a level of thoughtful balance and faithful expression of their Christian life to the world. And I think that, creating a space where, those individuals are highlighted and made the rule as opposed to the exception, will be helpful for the whole world and helpful for the believers. So yeah, that is one of the seed inspirations for the podcast. So definitely going to be bringing about some dope people. But listen, with all of that said, this ain't going to be like a Bible thumping podcast. We're not going to be opening scriptures week in and week out. Now it's going to happen at some point, but this isn't a Bible Thumper podcast, but that definitely is one of the initial inspirations for the pod. And, I'm praying that God will help and grace me to carry it out in a way that's true to the heart and the spirit of it. And so with that being said, we're going to take a quick break. I told you this is a show. We are going to toss it now to our first segment. I love this segment. I think you're going to love this segment. This segment is called Words for Nerds. Check it out. Come right back.
Yo, what's up, humans? Listen, this is probably going to be one of my favorite segments. This segment is called Words for Nerds. And basically, this segment is solely educational. Each week, we're going to be learning a new word because, listen, all great ideas are communicated through thoughts, right? And so articulation is something super important so that you can make sure everything that's in your head is able to be accurately communicated out of your mouth. And so this week, word for nerds is hyperbole. Hyperbole. Okay. The definition of hyperbole is an obvious or intentional exaggeration. It literally means to be doing too much with your words. You're speaking hyperbolic. Okay. Another definition for you of hyperbole is an extravagant statement or figure of speech not meant to be taken literally. Statements that are or would be considered hyperbole are statements like, I'm so hungry, I could eat a cow. You're not actually going to eat a physical cow. What you're trying to communicate is that you have a large appetite, but you're doing it in a very hyperbolic way. Or statements like, I feel like I have been waiting for an eternity. That statement is hyperbole. There's no way you could have been waiting for an eternity for anything. All right. So listen, this is what I encourage you all to do because this is a community where we will be learning from each other. Drop a sentence in the comment section using hyperbole so that we can all learn from each other. Feel free to be as hyperbolic as you want to be with your sentence. Let's get back to the show.
Man, listen, I told you you're going to get educated. When you tune in to the Expert Human Podcast, education is what is going to be served up in some form or fashion. And so that's your word for the week. All right, listen, if you smart, like I believe you smart, or if you're not smart, but you came here to get smarter, listen, drop a sentence using the word extemporaneously in the comments and then use it in your casual conversation this week. Words for nerds, that segment is probably going to get you a new job. You know what I'm saying? It could land you a job, or it could just make you look smart at the bar, or it could just make you, just have a high level of articulation as you trying to communicate all of your ideas in the world. All right. All right. So listen, okay, on the way out, I had this thought and I tweeted this out. I am getting back active on Twitter. So y'all make sure y'all follow me on Twitter. All of the handles for the Twitter, the show, my IG, Facebook, all of that is going to be on the screen and in the credits. But listen, I was sitting down at dinner and the Lakers were playing. Who were they playing this week? Last week. They were playing OKC. And I found myself rooting so hard for the Lakers and for Bron. And I was thinking to myself, why I feel so emotionally invested in Bron winning another chip. And I was thinking to myself, like, why am I so invested in Bron winning another chip? And then it dawned on me. Every generation of men who follow sports, it's probably true for women too, but I can only speak to the man perspective of it, is we all have our GOAT. And that GOAT is not only representative of the skills and the achievements and the accolades that they accumulate while they're GOATing, but it's also representative of our prime years of strength and vigor, right? I can only imagine when Michael Jordan was playing for the Wizards, all of the fans, all of the dudes that rooted for Michael Jordan when he was with the Bulls, there had to be some kind of reckoning when they seen Michael falling off to be like, I'm falling off with him too, right? As my GOAT ages, it marks the end of an era in my own life that I don't want to have to deal with or come to terms with. And I thought to myself, GOAT James got to win this so that I can still think of myself as a young man in my own mind. Like, when Braun stopped winning chips, I feel like that's officially when I would transition into like Unk status. And I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't embrace it. I'm still young. I'm still fly. I'm still full of energy and spunk. And Braun is my GOAT. Y'all can't see it, but I got a whole lot of LeBron memorabilia in here. Braun is my GOAT. And Braun isn't just my GOAT because of his greatness on the court. Braun is my GOAT because me and Braun grew up together. Me and Braun been with me through my marriage. Braun been with me as I've been raising kids. Braun was with me when my credit score was in the trash. Braun was with me when I paid my credit cards down and bought a house. So Braun can't get old. Braun can't stop being great. He cannot stop being in contention for the chip, because the minute that Braun's greatness affects his ability to be in contention and influence and dominate the game, that is subsequently when I feel that my Unk license is going to come in the mail. And I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. And so for that reason, I'm caping for Braun to be a top 7 player in the NBA, at least until we both 55. Yeah, I need that. I need that. I need that, Braun. You may not ever see this, Braun, but you don't know. You holding the flag for all of the men in that 37 to 42 age range where we like, yeah, nah, we still too cool for Braun to be retiring and to be kind of like an afterthought as it relates to contention in the NBA. And so, man, I'm with Braun. I'm with the Lakers, and not just solely because of the game. I'm with Braun because I need to stay in the status of a young man in my mind. And if Braun don't win not only the chip this year, but if he not in contention for it next year and the year after that and the year after that, I'm officially Unk. I'll officially be Unk. It ain't nothing wrong with being Unk. I got the wisdom in the game to be Unk, but I'm too fly to be Unk right now, man. I'm too energetic. I look too good to be Unk right now. So I need Braun just to keep doing what he's doing, keep being great, so that all the pre-Unks can continue to be great in these streets. Oh, man. All right, man. This was a short and sweet one. This is just introductory. I didn't want to give y'all too much of myself, my story. We're going to have time and, hopefully years to unpack all of that stuff. But this is just an introductory episode, really to kind of get you into the expert human world. Like I said, definitely make sure that you subscribe, like the channel, share the channel, tell your peoples to connect with it, because I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of good things that come out of this space. And so we're going to start it how we ended it. This show exists to enlighten, to educate, and empower every human being to be the expert version of themselves. This is the Expert Human Podcast. Episode 1 is in the bag. Let's go. I see y'all next week. I'm out of here.